Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Interjections podcast. This is the Undiscovered Decade. We take a look at all the films that came out in the 1990s. We go month by month, and we highlight a film that we think might be considered a hidden gem. And this month, I think, constitutes a particular hidden gem of its own, for sure. And it actually has a personal connection to one of our quartet. I don't know if you want to say anything, Jeff. You can introduce the film if you want.
All right. So an actual hidden gem in the sense that it was only released in 2 theaters, closed after about a couple weeks to a month, and then went straight to video in the UK. Dogfight, which a few years ago, actually, like I think 2012 or 13, they turned into an off-Broadway musical. It was Pasek and Paul that did it. They were the guys that did like Dear Evan Hansen and a couple other really
Christmas
good shows.
Story.
Yeah, Christmas Story.
And
They're
they did
like
La La Land's music.
Yeah. And so I was involved in one of the community theater productions of that out here. It was like one of the first performances of the show in New Jersey that I got to be a part of with that. And yeah, so it was just, I didn't even know that there was a movie that it was based on. So this was actually a real treat to get to watch.
Yeah, when we were going through 91, we're trying to pick something. We got to September. Nothing seemed interesting, really. Corey will go into it, but I saw Dogfight and I was like, is this the Dogfight that you did? We always thought it was an original Pasek Paul thing.
See, I didn't know what came first, the play or the movie. But
Definitely the movie.
Yeah. And I feel like it was probably based on a book too.
Might have been. I didn't see anything on that. I thought the writer came up with it on his own.
Yeah. Well, if he did, it's top notch. And it's a very small budget looking film. Like it's got heart. It's got River Phoenix. It's got.
That's the other big thing we wanted to focus on this film for. We get a chance now to talk about River Phoenix's career because 2 short years later he passes away outside the Viper Room. So he only has he's about to be in My Own Private Idaho, which is probably his biggest film other than Stand By Me. And
Empty, maybe.
Yeah, Running on Empty. He gets the Oscar nomination. I didn't know of that film until I was going through old Oscar nominations, but we were 1, 2 when that came out. So this obviously is maybe his least seen film.
And one of his best performances.
It was only in theater for like what, 2 months?
Yeah, it was
2 days.
It barely constitutes like I think they released it for the minimum legally required time to qualify for, theatrical
award season.
Why did it get like taken? Like why was it so like short?
I didn't know this, so I didn't go into this
in theaters.
I think it was literally just like it was not a big seller, or I don't know. I mean, it's also it's one of those stories that, having seen it after the musical, I can see where they could pull from to make it like a love. It is a love story anyway, but like it feels a little disjointed as a movie, because a large part of it is focused on the love story, and then they just sort of gloss over the war part at the end.
Yeah, wasn't it the whole second act?
Kind of. There were several numbers dedicated to that. But before we get into that, we should get into the synopsis of the movie.
Sure. So the basic premise is that River Phoenix and his 3 buddies are part of the Marines about to ship out from San Francisco to go into Vietnam and do some pre-war stuff because they don't exactly expect
Yeah,
to
they
do
they
war. What was
they,
what
they
was
go
the-
in like it's like the movie starts off and like him coming back home from Vietnam and then goes into a flashback like
There's
5
a little
minutes in.
bookend.
So like the movie is the whole thing's a flashback.
But
So
you know
they
he's
flash
sad.
yeah, they flash back to 63, and this is when the United States is like barely involved in Vietnam. We have troops over there, but like they're in an advisory role or a support role, and we're not like actively involved.
Yeah, support was what I was thinking of, like just preliminary stuff.
Yeah, no, we're like training the
So-
South Vietnamese and all that.
It was also that fairy tale era before JFK got shot.
Yeah, there is an
Everything
important
was all
point.
fine and dandy.
They
for
do
the most part.
mention that it's what, November 21st, 1963.
Yeah,
Like,
the
what
whole
date he actually died.
the whole thing is that his birthday is supposed to be on or around or the same week
Yeah.
as JFK's assassination.
Yeah, it's
Um,
the 22nd.
Well, it's the day.
Yeah,
It's
it's
the
the
day.
day before, the
Yeah.
morning of the end of the film. He ends up staying up late with a girl he meets, which we'll get into more. But it ends, and he gets on the bus to get back to where he's going to ship off from, and that's the day that Kennedy dies. He's getting on the bus basically around the time Kennedy's shot. So
Yeah.
he's going off as this idealized young soldier, which at the time you still thought, okay, we fought in World War II and we won. This isn't, we're the greatest nation in the world. So we can do anything, we're invincible.
Well, I
It-
think
it's
for the character being a Marine, I think it's more along the lines like they're Marines, and for him personally, because like they don't really go too much into the idealization and more into the fact that like he's just typical aggressive. Well, maybe not typically aggressive, but like he fits the stereotype of a Marine, and he was recruited because he's like, yeah, no, like I want to fight. Like he's got gumption.
Yeah.
He's got all this pent up energy, and like he's angry for no reason. And like he's
Yeah,
got to
that-
go. He's got to do stuff.
It has kind of a cynical tone toward the fact that they are being fed this ideal of you get to go and be a hero. You're just going to be an advisor, and then you're going to come back. There's going to be a big parade and everything. Like there's a whole song about that on the show, but it's like just them basically being built up as these super confident. They're already super confident, but just to amp them up to go be killing machines somewhere.
Yeah, I
And
think
even
I'm
touch
looking-
on that at the end of the movie.
Right.
There's that little conversation that they have in the back of the bus, which I don't know if you like. We buy I sell you bullshit, and we buy bullshit from other people. We buy
Mhm.
bullshit from Uncle Sam.
Yeah, it reminded me of a later film, Jarhead. Obviously, we kind of grew up with that. That was more with when we were in college, and that is the Iraq War, and so it has similarities in. Jake Gyllenhaal gets disillusioned from being such a powerful person, and he realizes that he's just almost a pawn in the system. And so I think his buddy, who's telling him we sell bullshit to each other, essentially, sometimes you just have to ride the wave and accept what's coming, and either you're a piece of it or you're gonna get swallowed alive. That's what I got out of that conversation.
I wonder if it got pulled out of theaters quickly because of the Iraq War.
Well, this is what I was
Yeah.
gonna get at. It reminds me of, I used to watch Quantum Leap, and this is part of when that was peaking, and it reminded me of almost an episode of that where it's like means well, and there's a bit of a message. And at the time, I felt as a child that this was the point at which we were trying to redeem the Vietnam War veterans, because all we learned in school was that they were kind of just ignored when they came home. And I don't know if that's coming from our generation. We don't know.
That happens at one point towards the end. He goes, "How many babies did you kill?" One of the hippies.
Right.
that-
Yeah, one of the side street San Franciscoans were like sees him in his uniform, was like, yeah, and like that, like how many babies you killed, because like that was the
Yeah.
attitude back then.
Right. It was very fresh. So it's understandable coming from that guy. But I wonder if by 1991, there's this sentiment like, we shouldn't be so hard on them. They were just soldiers for the most part. Obviously, it's saying the same thing as they're just doing their jobs, but like we still want to be respectful in some way. So I wonder if that's where this came from, at least the
Yeah.
script in the first place.
It was showing their perspective. They're like, leading up to the night that he ships out, but also they gloss over the 3 years that he was there, like the end of, toward the end of the movie, in the last 5 minutes of the movie, you see all of his friends get blown up.
It does feel kind of rushed.
And it was just like, oh, okay, that's all right. I was honestly expecting that to happen a lot earlier, not that particular event, but like they literally, he ships off in 63. They show the news reports about Kennedy dying, and then the next shot is 1966 when he's being shipped home, and it's like there were 3 years that could have.
We only see.
We don't know what kind of person.
And he comes back home before the Tet Offensive. So like, he does like. He's starting. He just got a little bit of the shit. He didn't get the brunt of it.
We don't see any of it.
I could have economized it by cutting down on the crust, cutting back to his friends.
Yeah.
Because I felt like that was kind of extraneous. Like I don't
want
them carousing the whole night. And at one point, there's a cameo from a young Brendan Fraser. I don't know if you guys know.
His film debut was a failure. He was some Navy squid, as they call them, that they got into a bar fight with.
Because like he was Navy, so they call the Navy squids. No, back to his buddies dying. It's weird. Like the 5 minutes, barely 5 minutes that they showed that them in actual Vietnam.
Vietnam.
The actual it looks like the side of the.
They borrowed the MASH set.
Sign is on.
It's the hills they drove past in the bus.
Yeah,
that's why I was smiling the whole time you were talking about them dying.
Because like I'm seeing the scene that they're in Vietnam. Like they have like if you watch Vietnam films, you look at the soil in Vietnam and you could tell it's Vietnam because it's on the soil. But like that's just me being a nerd. But
that's also like
the thing is like when his buddies die, like in that scene, like you see one of them definitely die. And maybe the other one gets wounded. I don't know. It happens so quickly.
He gets
dragged
wounded
away, and then they cut back.
Yeah, and then they cut back, and then like it's inferred that the other two died as well.
Yeah, he just comes back with all the bees on.
I was gonna say
for each friend. And
that would have been more poignant if we hadn't seen any of the Vietnam stuff, and then when he went to the bar, he showed the bees, and you're like, oh, that's in commemoration of all his friends dying.
Yeah, either clip friends and put in more Vietnam, or take Vietnam almost entirely out. That way you're just like somber.
That would have been more of a gut punch, I would have thought.
Yeah, actually. Because then I was like, who are these bar people? Like, we're in the final 5 minutes of the movie. I don't need to have some guy shaking his belly. And then you're like, oh, my friend.
They're just like, hey, we were talking about tattoos. You got tattoos? Like, here, let me just talk about this plot device that you're going to show.
Yeah, I guess I get it now that you say it that way. Like, that's how they got him to show it. But that, you cut out the Vietnam. That's a good point.
There's a couple narrative shortcuts, like when Lili Taylor stomach starts to follow, then she goes into the bathroom and happens to eavesdrop on a very pivotal conversation about the dogfight.
Well, right. Okay. Let's get back to that.
Yeah, we haven't talked about.
Get back to that. Let's get back to the actual dogfight aspect of this movie, and like because the thing is, it's a love story that happens to take place, like it's sandwiched in between these war flashbacks. But the pivotal moment happens when Birdlace, played by River, and his buddies throw what's called a dogfight, which is just a party where they go out and the goal is to find the ugliest girl they can and bring her to this party, and just there's like prize money and stuff, and it's a really like shitty situation when you think about it. But
it's
toxic
masculinity at its best.
Oh yeah,
this film would not fly today.
No, God no.
It's an interesting statement on this stuff because Lili Taylor talks about like, why are you this way? Like, you don't have to curse all the time. Why did you do the dog fight? Like, she at least doesn't take his bullshit.
Yeah, she calls him out on it. Like,
yeah.
Well, that's the thing is like, because he ends up liking her. Like he finds this girl and he's just like trying to sweet talk her into coming to this thing so that he, and that's the thing. They're not like,
There's a couple times where he's hesitant about what he's doing.
right. And he tries to kind of guide her away from it because he is like realizing his, he's growing a conscience that evening and tries to get her to not go. But she's a very introverted person who wants to he talked her into going to this party, so she's going to go to the party.
And like she made the decision to bail on work and being working with her mother who owns a diner. So she's like, later, Mom, I'll be back later.
And it was a very pivotal moment for her too, because she's like, I never do this. I'm going to go be spontaneous and go to this party with this Marine that just randomly invited me. And so it's like all the more heartbreaking when you find out what happened. And one of the other buddies brings a woman of the night.
Tommy Pickles.
Yeah.
Oh God, wait, that was her?
Yeah.
Yes.
You didn't recognize her voice?
I'm like, I know the name. The name sounds familiar, but I didn't. Oh my God, the voice of Tommy Pickles was the prostitute from Dogfight. Good grief. But
Childhood ruined.
I had seen her.
I don't know.
We watched Valley Girl together, Corey, right?
She was in Valley Girl.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. And she was in Dutch, which we talked about like a month ago.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, she was one of the walkers in that.
Oh jeez, why is she a hooker and everything?
Oh my God.
Because
Got one of those faces. I don't know. But then she, through a conversation in the bathroom, because Lili Taylor, who played Rose, she gets sick, and then at the same time, this other woman and the guy that brought her came into. Marcy is the character's name.
Yeah, and it's the guy that talks about bullshit at the end.
And-
It's Birdlace.
yeah, and also just to point out, her being sick is because she was trying to keep up with the drinking
Right.
of the Marines. So like,
Yeah.
bad call on that part.
He probably had never drank before that night. But yeah, so anyway, and then they get them in a room together, and then she finds out about the dogfight. And then she punches River Phoenix in the face, and it's just like, I never want to speak to you again, and she leaves. And he was already drinking with regret after during the competition. And so, following that, he just bails on the rest of the party and tries to find her and apologize. And it was just this is maybe 15-20 minutes in the movie, so you're just okay, this is actually going to turn into something.
Yeah, so that's pretty much the rest of the night. They reconcile, they learn about each other, and like Corey mentioned, they cut back and forth with the buddies, which I don't know that you necessarily need. I don't know how much there was in the play of them back in San Francisco, because I remember it, like you said, Jeff, where they're flashing back from Vietnam to the night that he spent with her, right?
Yeah, there are. Well, it's the musical is also bookended by flashbacks, and the last song is he's singing about, and his buddies died and all that. But the entire night takes place in San Francisco, and they don't necessarily cut back and forth. I mean, they do as much as you do in a normal show. There's the love songs that happen between Rose and Birdlace, and then there's the buddy songs that come in where they're just it's us hitting on other girls, and then there was the dogfight number and all that.
Yeah, I wonder if this lends itself to be a better stage show, or maybe they improved it when they made it a musical.
They definitely, well, that was the thing. It fits perfectly as a stage show. All they really did was just kind of condense some of the characters. The character that I played was not. I wasn't one of the bees, but there were only 3 bees, and then there were they had combined all these other characters that had these lines into 2 or 3 people,
Mhm.
But the other interesting thing is it felt kind of disjointed that they kept cutting back to them, but I feel like the intention was to show that, you know, he's having an actual genuine connection, whereas these guys are just still like he's maturing over the course of this night, whereas his buddies are still getting more and more like they're being
They're just being
19.
themselves.
They're being themselves. They're being 19. They're being like they're still. It's to show that like he's kind of grown, and they're still kids when they die.
Do you think that's why they had him survive, because he's the one that matures, or is that just
I think it's
happenstance?
just a love story that's gotta have to have
Yeah.
well, somber
Yeah,
happy ending, but you know.
I don't think there's any deeper layer to this.
No, he goes back, and it ends with a hug between.
I liked that. He got uncomfortable because there was like no talking. They just hug each other for a minute, and you
There's
get
a lot
this
of that.
from their eyes.
When they're being physically affectionate, they're relatably gawky. There's a lot of his hand on her shoulder.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I liked that.
Well,
though. I liked
the body language
It's-
is relatably-
Listen, what did I say? What did I say about Harley and Marlboro? Okay, it's an affectionate friendship movie that did not do well, because that people see a movie about Marines and whores and they're like, this is going to be a fucking great flick, and then they go and it's just like, oh, what is this? They're like enjoying each other's company. What the fuck is this?
You know what? That whole midsection where they're getting to know each other, I swear to God, Richard Linklater must have seen this movie, because he's based all those before movies on those conversations, very dialogue heavy. They're debating their ideologies. She's more thoughtful. He's more gung ho. Like at one point, they get into that conversation about the trouble with Mimi, which I've never seen the movie, but I've heard is complete trash, which she brings up at one point.
Interesting. Yeah, I haven't seen it either, but I can imagine. Like she goes because that's what she has to do.
Right.
Huh.
But
Yeah.
yeah.
Also, it's kind of got like a pre-Forrest Gump vibe, because like
Well, that's just the time period, maybe.
I mean, sort of. I mean, like he goes off to Vietnam, except
I see.
he's not a naive, innocent person. He's the like tough
River.
guy.
Yeah.
And then Rose, she's not like Jenny, where she's
Tough
just like
and world weary.
no, she's just
Yeah.
she's the naive one, but like
they
she
did a good
stays
job.
home, like she's on the other end of that generation.
Yeah.
You know, she joins the
Peace Corps.
she joins the Peace Corps, but like before she does, like throughout the movie, like she brings it up once or twice. It's like, I would like to join the Peace Corps. Later on, when he comes back and visits her, she's got a poster of the Peace Corps in her diner, which I'm assuming she is running herself now, and her mom is retired or something.
Right. That would be what I guess.
And like you
It's-
see her go from like throughout the movie, the typical like early 60s more conservative style of dress of the time, to like she's gone like full blown like more counterculture look
Yeah.
and attire.
That's an interesting thing too. They don't point them out, but a lot of the locations they shot in are still in San Francisco and were counterculture spots. Like they
By
went.
the way, you're trying to figure out that museum. I want to go to that museum that they went to.
Yeah. Well, you saw they were having the conversation in front of the City Lakes bookstore about. I think that's where she brings up that she wants to be in the Peace Corps, and that's still there. And that was where a lot of the beatniks would meet and first perform once they got to San
beatniks,
Francisco.
proto hippies.
So
yeah,
yeah,
like, and she's
museum
also
be
she's also
interesting.
like did we say that she was really into music? Like she like
yes,
she has
all
a
the
really
Woody
strong
Guthrie
affinity
stuff.
for it. Like she's in her room, she's got like pictures in frames on her wall.
Odetta, Bob Dylan, of course, Woody Guthrie. But the funniest thing, he tries to impress her at first to get her to come to the dogfight. I have an interesting thing I looked up as this was happening. He pretends that there's this singer, Jim Swain. Writer Jim Swain, that wrote that song. I Googled him just to see if it was like someone they had but wasn't famous. There's a Twitter account that is like tweeting at Bob Dylan and Woody Guthrie, trying to get them to notice him. So,
I like how the name drops Bob Dylan. He just happens to come on the radio next.
yeah.
There's a filmmaking gaffe in this. I don't know if you noticed this.
Hmm.
You know when he goes to leave the note on her window? They recycled this out of him jumping over the fence, only it's extended the second time.
I
Oh,
saw a couple times when the four guys were in conversation. Once in a while on the bus, like one would be Slashmore, one would be looking down. They weren't like they didn't have enough coverage.
Yeah.
But that's okay. This had the quality of like a good TV film, which
yeah.
I mean that's what the
Solid.
writer and director come from. So
A solid Lifetime movie.
yeah. Before that was a
You can
thing.
get away with this kind of language in a Lifetime movie,
Yeah.
especially
was-
when she's talking to the maitre d' at the restaurant.
Yeah. That is word for word what it was in the play, I remember.
Is that right?
Correct.
They're just going off and, making trouble, making good trouble at
I
night.
like how there's no redemptive arc to that host, though.
No, that guy didn't give a shit.
No, that guy's just a prick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that.
But he's a prick that's a good buddy.
It was more
He's
no, not really.
consistently
It was
correct.
more realistic though for him to be like, fuck you, I'm out of here, than yeah, I
Right.
see your point.
Yeah, nah, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know about you guys, but I really like Lili Taylor in this. I
Yeah.
thought she had a really emotive expression range, I guess. I'm trying to say this in a more eloquent way. Obviously, she probably
He was acting.
yeah. Sorry, I stumbled over my words there, but I really liked her growth throughout the movie because she obviously is pretty naive when he first meets her, and she overdoes it with the makeup, and she learns to be soft with him, but also like doesn't take his shit, like Jimmy was
Yeah.
saying. So,
Well, I think she was
She finds a
she
nice
was
balance.
already soft, but then like she just
Yeah.
learned to be tough.
but I think Lili Taylor is probably one of the best that could have handled this roles, and
Yeah.
it's unfortunate that it's not seen as much because obviously she gets a little more famous after this. But
Oh, she actually learned to be more confident and outgoing, not only because she left her job for the night to go party, but
Mhm.
like her little love dove pseudo boyfriend of the night encouraged her to go up on stage to sing,
yeah, that was a
even
poignant scene.
though there wasn't an audience, because they went to a random club because she wanted to show him some stuff around town. So she met up with like her friends that were closing up the club, and then he was like, hey, while they're chilling, he's like, why did you go up there and sing? And like he just kind of just nudges her, so like she grows too.
I
as a
feel
person.
like that was the linchpin of the movie, at least what the director might have wanted, because there's this pushing in on both of them as he's smoking a cigarette in the audience and she's playing the piano. Like this is their fate almost, and they're on a train unable to stop. So in a way, they both connect at that point and then go their separate ways, but they made each other better.
Yeah.
So if nothing else, if he doesn't come back to her, at least they can always remember this was part of what made them whole.
Yeah.
So,
Because the thing is, she doesn't know until like halfway through the night that it's his last night.
yeah.
So because he was afraid to tell her because he didn't want her to think that it was bullshit. And so it was like an actual genuine connection there. And then from that point on, they just lean into it and they're just like, we're just going to do whatever tonight. It's going to be great. Which, interestingly enough, obviously, of course, it's a coming of age romance movie. They end up sleeping together. At the end of the movie, the weird bar guys reference, because he asks, like, is Rose still running the restaurant?
Rose
And then they
Jean.
say, the mother retired, and now I think they're grooming the granddaughter to do it. And I'm like, wait a minute.
Huh.
They never addressed it again. So do you think that it's Birdlace's daughter?
Why not?
Probably.
Yeah.
Because he was.
Come up in the play?
It's referenced, I think. I
Yeah,
actually
I
don't remember, but it's
That
not
was
not
9
like.
years ago.
Yeah, no, actually, no. I don't think it was ever, You don't see a little girl run up or anything, but it's just.
Well, grandma's probably taking care of her. She's only 3. Mom was running the
That's
shop.
the thing, is they don't address it in the movie, and it's just sort of what happens after the hug, you know.
Interesting. I like that. There was some subtlety in that ending.
I feel like it was a good place to end, but this is also something that, like, in the grand scheme of things, maybe could have been expanded into like a mini series, like a more like a band of brothers with more, lovey-dovey stuff.
Yeah, this could have been a nice little 3-night mini series on ABC or something. Yeah.
But I don't know. It's just so it's an interesting thing to think about. They never address it one way or the other, but it's just sort of a throwaway line that the dude with the belly dancing tattoo says.
Yeah.
That makes you, oh wait, did they have a daughter that night? Like, what are we doing?
Yeah, that is a nice little subtle touch.
See, I also, for some reason, I didn't think they consummated it.
Why not?
I don't know, because
In the bed?
Use your head, Corey. Come on. A Marine about to ship out.
Plus, she did put more clothes on when she got in the closet. So I don't know.
It was 1963.
They didn't have lingerie.
The underwear was just longer.
She didn't anyway.
Like, and besides, it's a nightgown. Like, you
Yeah,
don't want to mess up the bed with all the fluids. That's what the nightgown's for.
All right,
Like,
all right.
come on. Things had a purpose back then.
looking for
Or so I tell myself. I don't know. I really don't.
Side note, I think this also did for a short time hold a record for most F-bombs in a PG-13 movie.
Really?
Really?
Oh, because it barely came out.
Was it PG-13 or was it R? I don't know. It was just
no, it was R. When we put the
it was R because of all of the swearing.
Yeah, I just assumed R. But I didn't know you saw it.
Yeah, it was right up in the corner.
Oh, good. Yeah, I liked it. I wanted to point one thing out to you. This writer, Bob Wisdom, he only wrote one other film, and it's an interesting thing. I just want to read you
Comfort. Was it Wisdom or Comfort?
Oh yeah, there's a
They both have really weird, like, spiritual names. So
yeah, Bob Wisdom, someone else. Bob Comfort wrote this film, and I'll read you the plot. It is called Good Luck. Have you ever heard of this, Corey?
No.
So it's Vincent D'Onofrio and Gregory Hines.
hey, we know what.
Hines plays a former dental student who had to quit school just before finals because of a car accident that left him paralyzed and in a wheelchair. D'Onofrio plays a former pro football player who was blinded in a freak accident on the field. And before their accidents, Byrne had been a tutor for Oli, which is D'Onofrio. And they team up to enter a whitewater rafting race. So those are the only two things this guy's ever written. So it's just interesting. I wonder to myself where he got his inspirations for both of these. That's why I brought this up. And it's an odd pairing that I'd never heard of. So
was he a veteran?
He got paralyzed and went whitewater rafting. You don't know.
Maybe.
Was he a veteran who then tried to go whitewater rafting? Is it?
There's nothing you can find on other than these two films. He also wrote a little bit of TV, like a couple episodes of stuff, but which is also Nancy Savoca, I'm assuming is the pronunciation of her name. This is really the only film she's ever done. She did a lot of made-for-TV films as well, which I think is where you get the quality. So I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
But I can also see why it disappeared pretty quickly.
Yeah. Again, people in 1991 were not looking for heartfelt, emotional connections in movies.
Yeah.
They wanted action, comedy.
They wanted the last 3 minutes of the movie for most of it.
Yeah.
Like with all the buddies getting blown up. They're like, let's do more of that for like about another hour.
Well, they had Air America the year before, so
Yeah, that's true.
God.
it didn't satisfy him enough.
Also, I love how we didn't talk enough about how Anthony Clark was also in this movie.
Who's Anthony Clark?
He was
a Southerner.
Oh, the guy from Yes,
the
Dear.
guy was just like He was the one who
You
said,
I get the 3 Bs the same as the others, right?
interestingly enough, a lot of like the songs and plot points and stuff came from his lines that he threw out. Like that was interesting, but I don't think his character carried over.
That's weird.
I don't know what he
was my favorite of the other 3.
He was Oki,
Yeah.
which was like, what was his real name? I forget because they talk about.
Obviously, it's a B.
Yeah. But like Oki was never a character, so I think it was just like translated to something else. Or maybe he was the fourth B that was deleted.
Yeah, because I remember there were 3 in your play.
He was the Pete Best of the group.
Did you recognize the shorter Italian dude that was of their 4
I
friends?
called him Vinny.
Yeah, he's the other guy that's not the Karate Kid in my
Ralph.
cousin's group. Yeah, Ralph Macchio.
You worked.
that's kinda cool.
And then also, I swear, I saw one of the Marines when they were all getting on the bus was Dr. Green from ER.
He's too famous at this point.
Wait, in 1991?
Yeah, he's from Revenge of the Nerds, and so he'd been making movies. The very first episode we did, we talked about a movie he was starring in. It just didn't do well, so then he ended up going to ER. He was the most famous person when ER started.
Yeah.
George Clooney was this guy that had been in like Revenge of the Killer Tomatoes, and Noah Wiley was a newcomer.
I forgot about that.
Mhm.
Revenge of the Killer Tomatoes.
Yeah. So and Clooney had been in a separate ER that was more dramatic with Adam Arkin. So he was a little known, but he was more of a TV actor. Well, Anthony Green had been in, or no, Anthony
Edwards.
It's Dr. Green. Had been in dozens of films by then.
He was in Top Gun. He was Goose.
Oh yeah, Top Gun. Not just Revenge of the Nerds. Top Gun's the biggest thing he's done.
Oh, all right.
And Gotcha.
Well, and some guy that looked like him.
I'm a big fan of ER, so
Yeah,
Nerd.
I loved Dr. Green the most too.
I was too.
That's a good ogre, by the way.
Anyway.
What am I gonna say? So I know that I would give this an A-. I was surprised how much I liked it. Honestly, it was very poignant for me, and I think that it contributes or is contributed to by Lili Taylor's performance, and I guess maybe the fact that I'm getting to see some River Phoenix. All I'd really seen was Stand By Me, so
I would go A- as well. I think he actually gives like a really nuanced, extraordinary performance. And I haven't seen, like you said, other than Stand By Me, I haven't seen a lot of stuff with him, which I'm hoping I should probably go back and rewatch a lot of that stuff.
we should definitely check out My Own Private Idaho, because that's what I hear is one of the
That's coming up.
that performance.
That's next month. Leon.
It's also Keanu, which another actor we all love.
Yeah. And
So-
actually, this does have kind of a Gus Van Sant kind of vibe to it too.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think they got great chemistry, and I think what could have been like a very like one-note play is actually a little more layered and multifaceted than it could have been. Because I was worried that it was going to be just that misunderstanding, and that he was going to try to redeem himself the rest of the night.
Yeah.
And that he was going to be very uncoiffed, and it was just going to be a clash of a snob versus a slob,
Mm-hmm.
but a lot more to it than that. So yeah,
I
I give
also
A-.
A-. Okay. I also, in the ensuing years since I saw your play, Jeff, I kind of forgot everything that happens in it, so it was kind of a fresh thing for me. I don't know how you felt about it.
I enjoyed it. Like I was also kind of viewing it through the lens of, when you watch adaptations, a musical adaptation of a movie. So I was watching it through that lens. And it held up. Like it was more or less a one-to-one thing. They just added songs and definitely leaned into the fact that that Rose was into music. Because she's got a couple solo songs and stuff like that. But I definitely an A.
Mm-hmm.
It was just, I enjoyed it. It was, and even I think even if I wasn't in the show, Like it would have been. I teared up,
Yeah.
and I really it was one of those things where not only was it a great movie, but it was one of those things that made me wish that River Phoenix was still around.
Yeah.
You know,
Absolutely.
it's just he was definitely like coming into his own as an adult actor at that point.
Yeah. This is like right when he was about to peak.
Yeah,
So-
it was like 2 or 3 movies before his last movie. It was like Dark Bloods, I think, was his last one that was never finished because they didn't shoot enough of the movie.
Yeah. Looking him up for this, I saw that actually got completed and released in 2012, right?
Yeah, I gotta look more into that, but
I never heard of it. So, but that's actually something I brought up to Jimmy. There was when he's waiting for Rose to change upstairs, he's leaning against the car, and I looked at Jimmy. I'm like, he looks like Joaquin Phoenix right here. It's incredible.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So it just makes me miss what we could have had. So,
yeah.
what would you give it, Jimmy?
I don't know. I'm kind of torn between like a B+ and an A- because like really it's that last 5 to 10 minutes, man. That's what drags it down.
It was a little
Really.
weird.
Yeah. I mean, it's not a bad ending. It's just how rushed it feels.
The Vietnam part.
Yeah.
You know, you excise that, I think it might have bumped me up to an A+.
Yeah. So
Just
like,
because if he shows that the thing Corey came up with, like, fixes that entirely.
yeah.
Just have
mean-
him do the tattoo, and it's
Yeah.
a more gut punch.
Yeah, no. So like, yeah, I'm kind of torn between like a a B and an A on it. So like either B+ or A-.
If only we'd all agree, we could have had 4 Bs. Thank you.
Had this.
I mean, with the 2 A-, a solid A and a B+ ish. The average is an A. So like,
Yeah, we all like this. I'm
I mean,
happy. I'm
it's a pretty
I'm
good movie,
surprised
yeah.
for myself.
It was a great movie.
Yeah.